You know, I don't mind the fact that I don't have an Xbox 360 or a PlayStation 3. I just have a Wii, and I'm perfectly happy with my Wii. There are a ton of good games for the Wii, it's got my favorite Nintendo franchises, and, when handled properly, its motion sensor technology really adds a different experience to the Wii's games. But there's one major weakness to the Wii that I'm not going to dispute. The Wii tends to get shafted by third-party developers. When third-party companies make a game and then decide to release it across multiple systems, they sometimes release a different version of the game on the Wii, assuming the Wii version gets made at all, and the Wii version of said game usually suffers. For prime examples of this phenomenon, check out my previously reviewed games Transformers, Cybertron Adventures, and Spider-Man 3. Hell, I've even heard the non-Wii version of the Captain America game was pretty good when the Wii game drove me completely crazy. But every now and then that shitty pendulum swings the other way, and the Wii version of a game ends up being far superior to its Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 counterparts. Such was, surprisingly, the case with the Battleship movie licensed game, and such is the case with Iron Man. Now, I haven't played the Xbox PlayStation version of Iron Man. I played through all of Batman Dark Tomorrow, but I do have standards. But here's what I've heard. Terrible level design that swamps you with tremendously overpowered enemies that force you to play like a complete wuss by hiding behind cover to regenerate health every few seconds. With the bar set that low, this game is pretty much guaranteed to come out on top, so let's play some Iron Man on the Wii. The game starts out the same way as the movie does. Tony Stark, genius billionaire playboy asshole, gets kidnapped by terrorists and builds a robotic suit to escape. Only in the video game, Tony's escape is set to the song Iron Man by Black Sabbath.
Sit tight, I'll get us out of here.
Please do.
Just classic. Except the song cuts off halfway through the level. Well, that's depressing. This is obviously a training stage to get you used to the shooting mechanics. You aim with the Wii Remote's pointer, and Iron Man will turn if you aim near the edge of the screen. It's quick, intuitive, and the game has pretty much the perfect amount of sensitivity with its aiming. You don't spaz out every time that you try to turn, but you also turn fast enough so that you can turn yourself in a different direction very quickly when you want to. It's this simple and fluid control that really makes this game fun to play. It's nice to play a game that doesn't have awful controls that fight you during every second of gameplay until you want to scream bloody murder and smash the game disc and flush it down the toilet with the rest of my shit! Huh. Where did that come from? Ah! Uncanny Valley! Marvel Zombies! What the hell is that thing? Yeah, the game's pre-rendered cutscenes are kind of... Well, these characters' models look, well, they don't look good. Jeff Bridges looks okay since they didn't have to draw hair on him, but Tony and Pepper just look weird. Plus, check out the cleavage on Pepper. Not that I noticed it or am fixated on it. Anyway, the game pretty much follows the plot of the movie, only with a bunch of stuff crammed in between the film's second and third acts. In the video game, Tony doesn't just stop one terrorist attack in I don't remember Whereistan and then call it a day. You go on several missions fighting a terrorist group called the Magia and attacking their assorted strongholds. It's kind of taking the plot of the movie and expanding its time frame to several weeks instead of a few days. The game also makes a few levels that you couldn't do in a serious, realistic Iron Man movie, like a level aboard a flying fortress where you fight a ton of flying robots. What puzzles me is that in the mission previous to Flying Fortress, Jarvis hacks into the terrorist organization's computer system and he says that Magia placed an order for the Flying Fortress. So what, is there some company that sells mail-order helicarriers? That can't be a very profitable business. Those things must cost like billions of dollars a pop. The game also gives Tony a great power, great responsibility character arc that I think really gives the game's story an extra measure of depth over the film. At first, Tony just sets out to destroy Stark Industries weapons, but in the second half of the game, Tony begins fighting a second terrorist group called AIM, and he realizes that his responsibilities as a superhero go beyond just cleansing his own name, and he sets out on a greater crime-fighting path. How weird is it that a tie-in game actually builds on the story of the movie instead of just extending it with pointless filler? Also, in the video game, you see Stain working with AIM to build the Ironmonger suit, and you even fight prototypes of the suit, solving the movie's giant plot hole where Stain builds the suit in a day and gets it to work overnight. Seriously, I go to an engineering school and I promise you, Stain probably wouldn't have been able to get that suit to turn on the first time he tried it. Murphy is not that kind. The game is mostly a third-person shooter, but it's unlike every other third-person shooter that I've ever seen. Given that you're Iron Man and you can fly, you have the ability to take flight anytime that you want. It's really neat that you have the ability to go from walking to flying seamlessly at just the press of a button. The only other game where I've ever seen that mechanic is... And just like the aiming, the flight controls are really smooth and responsive. You can freely aim around and use weapons just like you can when you're walking. It really makes the gameplay experience smooth. You gain altitude with the C button and drop with the Z button, and you can take off flying with the A button. Everything is nice and smooth and responsive, the way a game should be. It really gives you a sense of freedom that you can just fly around so effortlessly. It's astounding how fun a game is to play when its controls are this fluent. The game's levels are also pretty well designed and have a pretty good variety to them. Most of the levels are blow up everything at sight levels, but every now and then you'll be tasked with destroying missiles before they detonate in civilian areas. There are also 2 levels where you get to go peanut banana sandwich crazy, spraying missiles to destroy supply convoys, and there's 1 level that's basically a gauntlet where you have to fight Titanium Man and fend off swarms of enemies at the same time. There's also a level where you infiltrate one of AIM's strongholds and protect a building that Pepper is locked inside, while AIM tries to blow it up with waves of soldiers and missiles raining down from the sky. And now it's time for the Supervillain Pop Quiz! You're facing an enemy that possesses technology that you desperately need for your evil plans. You have kidnapped the hero's girlfriend. Do you A, hold a gun to her head and threaten to blow her brains out unless the hero surrenders? B, torture her until the hero gives up? C, booby trap her so that the hero gets captured or killed when he tries to save her? Or D, lock her inside a building that is critical to your own operations and then bombard that building with weapons so that you not only destroy millions of dollars of your own equipment, but you also give the hero ample opportunity to rescue his girlfriend. Because option D is what AIM does when Iron Man breaks into their base. You know, as a subtle bit of foreshadowing, one of the early cinematics shows Jeff Bridges reading The Art of War. I haven't read the book myself, but I doubt there's a chapter in it that instructs you to inflict grievous losses upon your own forces. You've got 3 weapons that you can cycle between as you play: repulsors, a minigun, and rockets. Each weapon has its own distinct advantages and its own distinct shortcomings. On reflection, I'm actually surprised at how much tactics and thought you have to put into the game's combat. Repulsors are very accurate and powerful, but they run out of energy quickly and take time to recharge. Your minigun fires really quickly and is great for clearing out foot soldiers, but they're not much good for other types of enemies. Unless you get the best pulse rifle upgrade, in which case you instantly disable mechanized enemies and can initiate instant takedowns. Missiles are really strong, but you only really use them on tanks and mech suits because helicopters will fly out of the way and, well, using missiles to kill foot soldiers is a little extreme. You have to constantly switch out weapons to deal with different types of enemies. Quite a big change from most third-person shooters where you just use whatever machine gun you happen to have ammo for until it's dry, and then you pick up another machine gun. Another neat feature that adds to the game's depth is the energy management system. The Iron Man suit has 3 subsystems: armor, propulsion, and weapons. Running out of propulsion energy means you can't fly, running out of weapon energy means you can't fire repulsors, and running out of armor energy means you die. You can redirect energy to one of your subsystems with a push of a button to boost one system's energy reserve, but this has the slight side effect of making the other 2 subsystems work like crap. The energy system is a good idea, but it's really not used to its full potential. Because your propulsion system runs out of power really slowly, the only time you'll ever boost power to propulsion is when you need to fly somewhere really fast at 3 or 4 specific times in the game. Boosting power to your weapon subsystem changes your repulsors to the unibeam, except the unibeam sucks and you will never ever use it. Seriously, you have to wait like 3 or 4 seconds for it to charge up, and it doesn't even do much more damage than the standard repulsors. What's the point? The only thing you'll ever really do with the energy system is give yourself a health boost when the things go pear-shaped. Pear-shaped? I've never understood that saying. How does pear-shaped mean bad? What do people have against pears? Also, answering people's biggest complaint with the Xbox version of the game, the enemies aren't so overpowered that they beat you into submission. You'll get your ass kicked if you sit around with your thumb up your butt, but if you put a little thought into encounters, you can clear out enemies without having an aneurysm. You just need to prioritize targets, take out enemies that will die quickly first, cycle through the necessary weapon for each enemy, and try to run away or boost power to your armor when shit hits the fan. The enemies are really strong if you don't play smart, but if you know how to handle different enemies, the giant fights are no problem at all, and you can clear out enemies without any issues. Another of the cool little extras in the game is that you can select one of 6 suits to use during each level. You can use the 3 suits from the movie, which are all pretty cool. You can use the comic book Mark I suit, which has a neat retro spaceman look to it. You can use the classic comic suit, which looks like shit in the game's more realistic looking world. And the Silver Centurion armor, which looks like slightly less shit than the comic suit. I really don't know why they give you an option called default armor when all it does is equip the Mark III suit. I guess in case you got stupid and forgot what Iron Man looks like in the movie, and the cover of the game's box. and in the painting that appears before each level. Come to think of it, there are a few points in the game where the game seems to imply that you're stupid. Just a few of the gems from Jarvis's dialogue. He reminds you that you shouldn't touch an electrified floor. He reminds you that getting shot by a giant laser cannon is bad. And in the first Titanium Man boss fight, he reminds you that exploding barrels of nuclear waste just might possibly be hazardous to your health. Even though I really like this game, it does have some flaws that I won't dispute. The first problem, and probably the biggest deal breaker for most gamers, is that the game was only 4 hours long, which is really not good for a modern game unless your name is Portal. This isn't the kind of game that you'll play hardcore for weeks or anything. There's not a whole lot of content, but I'm willing to overlook that flaw because those 4 hours are a lot of fun. The game also doesn't have a whole lot of variety to its weapons. There are 8 guns and 8 missiles to choose from, but each weapon that you unlock is just an upgraded version of the previous one. Instead of having 8 miniguns to choose from, you really have 2, a Gatling gun and a pulse rifle, the former of which becomes near useless in the second half of the game. Same goes for your explosive weapons. You really only get to choose between rockets and missiles, and hell if I know what the difference is between them other than rockets get EMP powers when fully upgraded, so you'll never use missiles again. And I'm not sure if I can call this a flaw or not, but guess what the strongest weapon in the game is? Repulsors? Giant missiles that explode in EMPs? The Unibeam? No. The weapon that deals the most damage in this game is your fists. I just can't get over this. You can destroy a tank in about 4 or 5 hits with missiles, or you can just fly up to it and punch the tank a few times and the tank explodes. The only downside with punching is that, well, punching requires you to swing the Wii Remote, and the pointer on your Wii Remote is what you use to aim. The game is actually coded pretty well so that your aim doesn't go completely screwy when you punch, but it's still an irritation. I'm also not too fond of the final boss fight with Ironmonger. The fight pretty much boils down to circle strafe until he flies away, then circle strafe some more until he gets killed by the reactor. The only weapon that does crap to Ironmonger are your repulsors, which take away maybe a millimeter of his health bar before they need recharging. You also can't use your deadliest weapons, your fists, because if you get too close to Ironmonger, he gives you a nice big hug. Aw, what a nice guy. Oh, come on, that car didn't come anywhere close to hitting me. Oh, great, now I'm dead. Oh, also, whenever you die, you have the chance to save yourself by doing a few little quick-time events. They get harder and faster if you die multiple times, but still, if you don't screw these up, Iron Man is effectively immortal. You still want to be smart when attacking large group of enemies, though, because screwing up these quick-time events means starting the level over. But even though the game has a pretty weak ending and it's too short, I really like this game. The game revolves around a mechanic that I've never seen in a video game before. The game makes full use of this mechanic by letting you fly around in wide open environments, and even though the game is short, it has a lot of variety in its missions and enemies. The game actually makes you feel like you're Iron Man. You're strong and you can take on entire armies by yourself. It makes you feel badass, but you're still vulnerable and you have to put thought and even a little strategy into how you play. The game's core gameplay is really fun, and really, if the game is fun at its core, you can overlook a lot of problems in a game, and Iron Man is absolutely fun enough for me to overlook its rough edges and shit ending. And hell, the game has a sequel. I bet Iron Man 2 will take this formula and improve it into something even better than the first game, right? Right? Right?
No!